Welcome to a new season of Borough Talks, the Borough Market podcast. I'm Giulia Crouch, and this spring I'm back at London's most iconic food market to chat with the traders who make this place so special.
It's a brilliant place to be. It's one of the best markets in the world.
We'll explore their journeys, uncover the best seasonal produce, and pick up plenty of expert foodie tips along the way.
And you can actually mix the sauce yourself. You could make stir-fry soya noodle. That same sauce, you can make a pao. You could make stir-fry vegetable. It's so easy.
As the market comes to life with fresh produce and new flavours, we're celebrating the people who make it all happen. So join me for another season of delicious conversations with those who know food best. This is Borough Talks. It's my pleasure to introduce Eduardo Florez, founder of the Colombian Coffee Company. Eduardo, tell me about your business, how it got started, and what it's all about.
The idea came through from reading a newspaper about 15 years ago. It was the first time that I heard the words post-conflict Colombia. It was like a sharp knife that I felt inside me. I couldn't imagine Colombia in peace.
And you're from Colombia, you grew up there.
Exactly.
Tell listeners about the conflict, because people might not even know.
The conflict started 500 years ago when the Europeans arrived. It started like that, honestly. The conflict in Colombia is super complex because the big disconnection and the imbalance north-south, we are totally different and totally disconnected. In this part of the world, you have cocaine consumers, and the demand for cocaine is insane. Unfortunately, you had indigenous communities in the Andes in Colombia that grow coca and have coca as a sacred plant. So you see how crazy and disconnected we are, and very unfortunately, that huge demand for cocaine is creating and generating a conflict in Colombia.
How does this link to you wanting to open up a coffee business?
When I read that article about post-conflict Colombia, I thought, well, I should do something for Colombia. Now, I have always thought about coffee. My dad had coffee in the house, and I remember he decided to cut all the coffee trees. When you are a kid, cutting trees seems like sad. So I remember it felt like a big thing. He cut all the coffee trees.
Even though Colombia is one of the largest producers of coffee
It's
in
the
the
third
world.
biggest producer of coffee, but still there's poverty in coffee growing communities.
Why is that?
Because farmers don't put price to their coffee. Farmers are totally exposed to whatever the buyers want to pay them. That's the problem. So I ask, in this part of the world, would you go into a business where you produce a product but you cannot put a price to your product? No, because it would be ridiculous. That word is key. It would be ridiculous to produce something to go into a business like that. So all coffee farmers are in that ridiculous position of not being able to price the coffee. Coffee is priced in London and New York in the financial markets. You see, the disconnection is
bizarre.
insane.
It sounds bizarre when you describe it, and it's funny that this managed to become the norm there.
Exactly. So we need to decommoditize coffee eventually one day.
So how are you trying to fight this with the Colombian Coffee Company?
I think it's important to get the farmers into the supply chain, and it's super important that farmers can price their product. So that's the good thing about the specialty coffee sector. Farmers are allowed to negotiate prices. So a big part of what I do is education. I'm small in London. London is one of the most exciting business environments, but it's also one of the most competitive businesses. So I wish I was big because I could eventually sell more, and then that means we could buy more coffee from more families, support more families. But what I'm doing is encouraging farmers to produce quality, not to blend their coffees. And also we teach them what we do in our cupping sessions on Wednesdays here in the roastery. We do the same exercise in the farms. So we train people so that they can value, understand and recognize their coffees, their tasting notes of the different varieties that they have. And with that, they get more empowered.
Is that quite eye-opening for them?
It's super beautiful, but more than wide opening, it's an amazing way of sharing knowledge.
But you want to make sure that the farmers are getting a fair price for their coffee.
That's super important. So one thing that I have important is to make sure that First of all, I don't like to negotiate, and this is something that I find almost morbid. When in this part of the world, wherever you go, you will never negotiate the price. That's not, it's just prices are fixed here. But companies from here negotiate in those countries just because apparently in those countries you negotiate. This is how you do it. But coffee farmers, it's not like going to a souk to negotiate the price of a pair of shoes. I encourage farmers to think well about their costs, to put in their cost, to value work done by children and women. Work made by women and children is normally don't recognized as work, so they don't put it as labor because it's part of the family, so that wasn't a salary. So I'm encouraging to think any labor as a salary. They have to understand that there should be a percentage left as profits. So learning that, they can evaluate better and be more solid and more prepared to negotiate the price with the new company buying coffees there, not just with us.
And how long have you been in business?
I've been doing this for almost 13 years now.
Have you seen the lives of farmers that you work with change over that time?
Yes, but it will take a longer time to really see change, you know. This is a long project. In Colombia, peace is super complex. I can tell you something that really struck me. Last year, I opened a cafe in Bogota. And you know, one thing is selling Colombian coffee to English people and to explain to them that by buying from us, you're helping us to bring peace to Colombia. And I thought that Colombians, we were the most interested in peace in Colombia. So I thought it would make sense. When we put the sign in the shop, we call Cafeína Ética, which means ethical caffeine. And underneath the second line, I work Peace Project, Proyecto de Paz. And then we opened. And then we noticed that not many people came in. It was very weird. It was the first 2 months of really this uncertainty and don't understanding what's happening. And then we heard that people were saying, local peoples around were saying that we were a guerrilla project, one of the many guerrilla groups that are part of the conflict. That only tells how difficult it is going to be to reach peace to Colombia. If you write the word peace and you look suspicious, imagine how difficult. It's going to take a long time to reach peace.
And what's the reaction like in the UK? When people come to your stall and you tell them about the coffee and your project, how do people react?
Well, it's beautiful to see the reactions here, but something that I have had super important from me from day one is I'm not asking people to buy our coffees out of pity. So that's why I don't keep telling people, oh, this is the situation in Colombia, please help us. No. What we do is we showcase quality, and people buy our coffees because they like our coffees. And only then, if you are interested, you can read more, and that's when you find out that, oh, actually, yes, we are a social enterprise, and this is the project that we are doing. So to me, it's super important to separate those two things, because there's something that has to do probably with dignity. Do you know, I think if farmers produce a high quality product, they should receive high value, instead of receiving half the price and the other half as charity.
100%. No, you want it to be led by the coffee.
Exactly. So the reaction on people here is interesting because, first of all, you see the wow factor when they say, oh my God, yes, orange notes on this coffee. And then when we explain to people, when people stay around and they learn more that we are a social enterprise, that we are Colombians and that we are doing this to bring peace to Colombia, it's just a beautiful circle, you know?
There you go, hope that worked.
So you've brought some coffee for us to try it in.
Yes.
Tell me about them.
I would actually do it the other way around. I want to ask you, tell me about it. So first of all, when you get the coffee, smell the coffee before. And then I want you to think on three words, right? It could be
so
acidic, sweet, or bitter.
It's not sweet.
One of the three.
I'm going to say acidic.
Okay.
Maybe I'm off.
No,
but
interesting.
that's how it smells to me.
Yes. And now if you try it, again, tell me one of the three words. Use one of those three.
Again, I think acidic. But I'm also, I'm thinking really, this isn't one of the words, but I'm thinking floral. it's tasting like flowery to me. Am I completely off?
I think you are a total foodie person. You recognize everything. So
This
you
is great, I'm
you,
pleased.
exactly. You just told us what this is. So this is a Bourbon. Bourbon is one of the first branches of the Arabica family tree, and it's a Bourbon grape. So it has a very interesting floral acidity on the as fragrance.
I'm so pleased this is recorded for everybody to know that my palate is spot on.
Your palate is amazing. Come work with us.
Oh, and do you know, I love coffee.
So you did very well because you just spotted what this is about. Fruital acidity notes. That's one of the key things that we roasters are looking for in the specialty coffee sector. So well done. Yes.
It's really delicious. I like it a lot. If you put milk in there, would you ruin it? Would you not be able to taste the flavours?
It's absolutely fine, but with milk it's a different world. So I would suggest then another variety that would work better with milk. For instance, something that acidity is very low,
Okay.
but it's super sweet with cacao notes.
Yes.
That with milk would be
Oh,
amazing.
that's lovely. Like when it gets chocolatey and kind of rich and there's a sweetness to it.
Exactly. And then even if you like an alternative milk like oat, then in that case, for instance, you could have this Bourbon grape, and in a flat white, it would be like an Australian flat white.
Ah, so how many varieties of coffee beans are there in Colombia?
Good question. There are more than 140 different species of coffee plants. And then we humans, we only drink 3: Arabicas, Robustas, and Libericas. Now in Colombia, we only grow Arabicas. Arabicas are the fine species. And then within the Arabicas, there are 56 different varieties. Now, most commercial coffees are blends of everything, many things.
See, I didn't know that, and I think that people generally don't know that their coffee is a blend.
Most people don't know that. And then with that, you also have the English creativity working in advertising. So advertising in England is amazing. You get all these Italian blends, barista blends. It's not really giving you information. So with that, people tend to think that really blends are fantastic. But like whiskey or wine, when you specialize, you really differentiate notes. So yes, in Colombia we only grow Arabicas, and then within Arabicas 56 different varieties, and what we are doing is showcasing each individual variety.
So you talk about single origin coffee, don't you? And that's what's meant by this. It comes from a single origin. It's not a mashup of different ones.
Yes, so that's another interesting misconception somehow, because a single origin variety for us is not just a region or a farm. Just one farmer in his farm could have different varieties, but the commercial market is only interested in buying blends, so there is no incentive for farmers to divide the varieties, separate the varieties in the standard coffee. What we're doing with our project is actually encouraging farmers not to blend, and then when they don't blend, they have higher chances of getting higher scores on each individual variety, and with that, higher chances of getting more money paid.
What benefit is there from having a single origin coffee? Why is it important, and how does that play out in the taste?
Well, there are many reasons why we encourage single origin varieties. One is that we are giving nature a chance to diversify. If you only produce one type of coffee, you're running the risk of one day just one disease killing all the plants, all that variety, as it almost happened with bananas a few years ago.
I've heard about that, yeah.
So exactly, and that's one thing. Another important reason is that farmers can get higher income, and then higher income for farmers is one of the key issues of my project.
While it's here and it's hot, we've got another
Yes.
coffee to try.
So again, remember the 3 words: acidity, sweetness, or bitterness.
This one's more challenging. The other one was really apparent straight away. For me, it's like a mixture between sweet and bitter. Okay, I'm gonna say bitter.
You got to say bitter.
I think so.
Okay.
From the smell, shall I try?
No, smell the other one again and remember what acidity is. It's not acidity, but
Well, my first thought was sweet, and then I changed it to bitter. I feel like
Okay.
it's in between the two.
okay.
So tasty. Right, this is almost giving me like some savoury quality to it.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's overly bitter, but it's not overly sweet.
Yes, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So
It's
I think
delicious.
you should come to work with us in coffee.
I would actually
So
love
you
that.
identify something. Honestly, I don't agree with the bitterness part because everything we do is about avoiding bitterness. But it's so easy to produce a bitter drink. So it is a big challenge with our baristas. There's a big difference here. We prepare the first one as a filter. Now we use paper filter. The paper absorbs most of the oils. What you get is a very clean cup. In a very clean cup, you can identify very well acidity notes and fruital notes.
That's
All those
so
that you identify.
interesting.
Now, this one is a long black. It's preparing the espresso machine. When you prepare an espresso machine, obviously you have is an espresso. So, an espresso is a different, completely different animal. And I'd rather have an espresso than a long black. But this is a long black, so it's water and an espresso. And then the espresso, we grind it differently. The pressure applied to pass the water through the filter is 9 bars. It's a monstrosity of an accident what happens to that coffee inside that portafilter. But that's the beauty of the espresso. This, in a way, seems to be like an over-extracted because it has lots of water, so it kind of pushes bitterness. So you were right, it could have that kind of little bitterness, but it was sweet, as you said. That's it.
I feel like you want some bitterness in your coffee. I think that's why I like coffee, because there is that element. I mean, you don't want it to be fully bitter. I think that's the sign that they've made it badly. Sometimes when it tastes burnt, you know?
It's absolutely true. You know, for a moment when I go to farms in Colombia, I fall in love with the coffees prepared on fires, and also they roast the coffees in a pan, and sometimes they get burned, and you get that bitterness taste. But when you understand bitterness and you understand sweetness, sweet acidities, it's very difficult to like bitterness. And I am there, so I really don't like bitterness now that I know the difference and that I know how everything we do, from the process in Colombia, the transport, the roasting here, and the preparation of the drink, everything is thought to avoid bitterness.
And everything makes a difference to the taste then, it sounds like. So it's not just the variety, it's also the way that you make the coffee that can change the taste.
Absolutely, the brewing is key.
So what variety is this one that we've just
So
tried?
This one is called, is a hybrid, and we call it Caturra Timor. In Colombia, it's called Variedad Colombia, and it was developed by the Colombian Coffee Research Institute. It was developed to stop two main diseases. So the Caturra Timor has very thick leaves, and the thick leaves are stronger to fungus disease called La Roya. So obviously that's better because farmers are less exposed to a big disease. But then because it's a hybrid, it's been modified, it's a cross between an Arabica and a Robusta. So that's why Robustas have that kind of bitterness that you recognize. So you're really good with recognizing
I'm
those.
so pleased about that. Aside from the sweetness and a little bit of bitter, what are the kind of other flavours are in this coffee?
This particular Caturra Timor, we drink it as an espresso, so we couldn't recognize certain things. Well, as a long black, water and espresso. But if we had this Caturra Timor as a filter, I'm sure you would have recognized orange notes.
Oh, that's lovely.
So exactly. This farmer, he was telling me this story. He roasts also his coffee in his farm, and he's trying to sell it in a local market in Popayán. And he has customers coming to him to ask him to please don't add orange flavors. and you know, it's so insane because he's so impressed. He has to keep constantly telling his customers, it is a normal, it's just a natural flavor of my coffee.
That's
Imagine
amazing.
that. Absolutely amazing, yes.
So coffee can have such a variety of different flavours, different tasting notes. What can they range between?
It's a good question. In this part of the world, we tend to work with the high quality arriving, right? At least in the specialty coffee, we are the luxury of our coffee. So everything that arrives here is already 15%, the top best 15% from Colombia. But in Colombia, the tasting notes are super impressive because Q graders and the industry there are looking for defects. If we were doing this interview in Colombia, it would be super exciting and interesting to understand the whole spectrum of notes. So, for instance, let's start a cherry that was picked green, not really ripe, not really ready for harvest. It would taste like green peas,
Oh,
like
really?
grass, super impressive. Is something that we won't notice here. When it's ripe and the harvest, then it will bring its natural floral notes or fruital notes like orange or strawberries, pineapple, bananas, different varieties with different palate notes. Then you move to sweet, so you can have cacao, cinnamon, panela. Panela is like raw organic sugar that we work in Colombia. And then let's say you have a cherry that was picked up, it just past the point of being ripe. So it's gonna be probably like almost wine.
Yep.
And then if you pass that, it would be like almost putrid, fish putrid. The answer is insane. The spectrum on tasting notes in coffee is super complex.
Is there an ideal way to prepare coffee then? Should we all be drinking it filter in order to be able to really taste it?
I would love to invite all English people to Colombia.
I'll
In
come.
the farms in Colombia, we don't have the tradition of espresso machines. So most of the drinks are prepared as filters. And with filters, you can just enjoy fruital acidity, sweet acidity notes. We get many customers asking us, well, what would you advise me? And our advice is, how do you drink it at home? Keep drinking it as you do, but buy good coffee. That is what it makes the big difference.
I think as well it's about what you fancy at that certain time as well. You can have a variety. You could have
Absolutely.
a filter and then later on you can have a flat white, you can have an espresso after your dinner. Like, they're all different. I enjoy them all for their own, you know?
Yes, if you wake up and you want to wake up with something like orange acidity notes, a little bit funky, a little bit sharp, but after lunch you want something mellow, nice, short.
Yeah. Sometimes it's almost, I see it like a dessert, but yeah, it totally depends on the type of coffee you have, and there's so much complexity to it and it's so technical. I love the kind of uber geeky side of coffee. I find it really, really interesting. And do you think that British people are getting more knowledgeable about coffee and more into their coffee? You know, traditionally we've always been a tea drinking country, but do you feel like coffee's on the rise?
No, absolutely. It seems English people have gone crazy for coffee. So, and especially for the specialty coffee sector. So if the standard coffee is growing at 10-12%, the specialty coffee is growing more than 14%. So it is fantastic. People here have high expectations. Our customers in Borough Market, is people that come with high expectations, and most people understand what is good coffee. So some people come already asking for fruital acidity notes. Exactly. Or for particularly cinnamon notes. So we can offer them varieties like Typica, for instance. So that's the beauty. I think we are in the right place because we have already a market that knows about good coffees.
100%. People are highly engaged, aren't they? And they want to drink the best.
And then again, that's the beauty of Borough Market. People here are asking questions. And we love that. We love to answer questions.
So what kind of questions do you get? Do people come in and say, look, I normally drink an Americano, or I love cappuccino, what's the best for this?
We've got all kind of questions. So sometimes we have people asking us, okay, which of all these is the most bitter? That's fantastic a question, because we have to explain that actually everything we do is about avoiding bitterness, and then we start talking about strength of coffee, and then telling people what is it that we value, and also telling people what is the difference between strong coffee and a bitter coffee.
Yeah, what is the difference? Because what does strength mean in terms of coffee?
Exactly. So for us, because we do a very light roast to showcase the fruital notes, we then don't have the natural body that you would have on a dark roast. So we use, for a strong coffee, we use more coffee. So in the industry, many companies work from 14 to 17 grams or 18 grams just for one drink, whereas we work from somewhere between 20 24 grams. So with that, you have a strong coffee, but in a strong coffee that you can recognize sweet orange notes, for instance. That is what is insane.
How do you drink your coffee?
It will depend so much. If it's in the morning, if I want to wake up nice, I will definitely go for fruital notes, but on the acidity side. That's something that I enjoy. But I also like to portray cafés de olleta. So in Colombia, in any coffee farm, in any house in the countryside, we have these long pans called olletas. And then with a cotton filter, you prepare the coffee. And I love that because it immediately takes me to the mountains, to Colombia.
What kind of coffee does that result in?
Well, I was telling you that in a filtered coffee, the paper absorbs most of the oils. But imagine it's a cotton filter. So the cotton allows oils to pass through. So you have a filtered coffee like the ones we had here, but with more body. So super beautiful, yes.
So is that the traditional way of
It's
drinking
a traditional way of drinking coffees in Colombia, yes.
So does that mean that you don't need a really expensive fancy machine to make a good coffee?
No, all you need is good coffee. That's the most important thing, good coffee.
And are you an espresso fan? Do you drink kind of Italian style coffees like cappuccino?
No, I have always been into the filters, but to be honest with you, once I understood espressos, it took me about 5 years to work, research, practice, experiment, learn how you construct an espresso, and then another 2 to 3 years to deconstruct all the espresso theory to come up with our own espressos. So I'm an espresso lover these days.
What's your espresso like? I love an espresso.
I was telling you about Bourbon. Bourbon is one of the first branches of the one that we had here at Bourbon Grape.
This was the kind of fruity...
Yes. So there's a sub-variety, pink Bourbon. Now, I don't know if you have seen a coffee plant. Have you seen a coffee tree?
No.
Normally when the cherries are ripe, they are red. But there's a sub-variety of the Bourbon called pink Bourbon. They go pink. The fruit is pink. It's super beautiful. That is my favorite variety. Because all the Bourbons, they normally have cacao notes, clear. The pink Bourbon, sometimes you have like strawberry acidity notes. So can you imagine an espresso with strawberry notes?
Yeah, that sounds
and
fantastic.
The aftertaste clear cacao, like sweet. It's like amazing as an espresso. So that's my espresso.
Eduardo, what's next for your business? What would you like to do?
I'm a big dreamer, so I've got 2 little dreams. One is to convince the market, to convince Colombia, to convince consumers to really go and only demand, only buy, only consume organic. So I love to be able to convince the Coffee Growers Federation in Colombia to grow organic coffee. If Colombia was the first country to move to totally 100% organic coffee, I'm sure people in Borough Market would love the idea of buying coffee from a country that only produces organic.
100%.
But it's not just that. It would be organic sugarcane, organic onions, organic potatoes, and then passing that as an example to everyone. We could all become organic, like in the old days.
Well, look, Eduardo, this has been amazing. This has been such an education in coffee and also just so delicious.
Thank you.
I will definitely be buying your coffee because it's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been an amazing guest.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Borough Talks. Make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Borough Talks was hosted by me, Giulia Crouch, produced and edited by James Deacon, editing and sound design by Chris Attaway, and a special thanks to Nina and Bethan at Borough Market, the team at Bidow's Wine Bar for hosting us, and everyone who spoke to us and fed us.
Come in, okay, sweetheart. Thank you so much, yeah?